Hey gang, what's going on? James here and welcome back to the show. I know my voice is a little messed up right now. I'm just getting over a cold, and it's not back to normal, but it's getting there. But I just really wanted to do this video. So, one of my last videos, I talked about horror remakes, and the top pick was The Lost Boys. Lost Boys is a movie that I would love to see remade. And when that video came out, one of the comments from David the Dude was, you should do a cast list of the Lost Boys. Like, who would you cast in the Lost Boys remake? So I decided, you know what, I'm going to fulfill his request. I'm going to do a video about who I would cast in a Lost Boys movie. Now, in all honesty, this is something that I've thought about for a while because, you know, when I was a kid and when I first saw The Lost Boys, I always thought, like, man, I would love to remake that movie one day. So The Lost Boys is something that has always been kind of like in the back of my mind. And I started thinking about different ways you can do it, characters, how you can change certain characters, how you can kind of blend, like, characters together, you know, some of the side stories and the dialogue and stuff like that. I just started thinking about, like, how I would remake that movie. So when I got the request to do the cast list, that's kind of like what I did with this. But I'll just get right into it and I'll kind of explain my reasonings as we go. But for the role of Michael, the actor that I like that's kind of like up and coming is, and I know I'm probably butchering this name, Timothée Chalamet. Now I know when you look at it, it sounds, or it looks like it says Timothy Chalamet, but you actually pronounce it Timothée Chalamet. But he's a new up-and-coming actor, and he was actually nominated for an Oscar last year, I believe, in 2018, for Call Me By Your Name. But he was in Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, and he was just a really, really good actor, and it was a good part for him. And I think he would do really well in the role of Michael, the kind of detached loner of the siblings, who ends up becoming a vampire. So that is who I would pick for the role of Michael. For the role of, well, I thought to be kind of interesting, I wouldn't cast it as like two brothers, but instead I was thinking about doing it as like a brother and sister. And I think it would be really interesting because Sam in the first Lost Boys, played by Corey Haim, you know, he was a boy who was interested in vampire hunting and trying to fight off vampires. So I think it'd be really interesting in this day and age to see a girl take on the role of, you know, wanting to hunt vampires, wanting to go out and fight vampires. So I started thinking that the role of Sam can be switched to Michael's sister. So in terms of actors, one of the actors that I thought of was Mackenzie Foy. And she was in Nutcracker in the Four Realms. She played the daughter in Twilight 19. No, the one where Kristen Stewart is in love with one of the monsters. And, you know, she's like, Jacob. And he's all like, you know, that one. I can't remember what the title was. But she's kind of coming up to be a really good actress, and I think, you know, if she's about the right age now, I think she would do really, really well in that part. And like I said, it'd be interesting to see a girl take on that role of the vampire hunter and the vampire killer. So that is why I would like to see her in the role of Sam. And then you could even change it to, like, her name is Samantha, so you still got that Michael and Sam aspect of it. Now, for the role of Max, well, spoiler alert, Max ends up, or you find out that he is the head vampire. And Ed Herman, the one who played the original Max, he was such a good actor. He was a good actor in everything he did. I started thinking about actors today who are a little bit older, who you kind of like and you almost kind of don't have that you don't suspect them. And one of the characters that came to mind was, or one of the actors that came to mind was Richard Jenkins, and he's also a Academy Award nominated actor. But I've just loved him in everything he's done. You know, I loved him in Step Brothers. I loved him in Dear John. He was really, really good. He was good in Eat, Pray, Love. He was good in that. But I think he would be really good in this role because, like I said, he is a very unsuspecting actor, and I think it would be a surprise when you find out that he is the main vampire, unless I just spoil it for you now. um, for the role of David, the I guess he's not the main vampire, but he's the second in command vampire. He's the leader of the gang of vampires, I guess, the group that Michael hooks up with. Um, One actor that I thought would do really, really well in this part, and one that I've loved from the X-Men series, is Evan Peters. I think he would do really, really well in this. And even though I didn't see American Horror Story, from what I've heard, his performance is great in it. So you know he can kind of play that dark, brooding character that, you know, at first you think he's just kind of like this motorcycle thug and ends up becoming a vampire. But I think he would do really, really well in that. And I'm not going to talk about, you know, all of David's, you know, like his vampire posse or whatever, because those, to me personally, those roles are just kind of filler roles. You can get anybody to play those roles, really. So I'm not going to talk about them and who should play them. Now, this is where I'm probably going to get a lot of slack for it. But if I were to remake this movie, I don't want the Frog Brothers in this movie. Now, like I said, I know I'm going to get a lot of slack for it, but to me, the Frog Brothers weren't the focal point of this movie. Okay, let me back this up a little bit. When I first saw The Lost Boys, I saw it as a movie about becoming disconnected, you know, disconnected from your family, you know, joining this group, you know, the acceptance from, like, your father passing away and stuff like that. So to me, my interpretation of this film, the Frog Brothers, I just spit all over the place. Sorry about that. I'm going to clean off the ring light. The Frog Brothers weren't a pivotal role for me. They weren't a pivotal part of that movie. So in terms of, like, remaking it, I wouldn't even, like, put them in there. But you run into the question of who do you have that Sam or Samantha can go to kind of help fight these vampires? Who does she gain this knowledge from? And I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? The answer is in the original Lost Boys. At the end of the original Lost Boys, the grandpa turns around and he says, you know what's so wrong with this place? Too many vampires. So right there, you just kind of know that the grandpa has insight about the vampires. So if I were to remake The Lost Boys, I would make the grandpa the go-to for hunting vampires, and then you make it more personal. You know, it's not so much that she has to save her brother, but the grandpa has to save his grandson as well. So I started thinking about who would be the right age to kind of play a grandpa and kind of play, I guess you could kind of say, almost a badass, you know. You know, in terms of vampire hunting, and he's very knowledgeable about this stuff. And one of my favorite actors of all time is Benicio del Toro, and I think he would do really, really good in a role like this, and he's believable. If Benicio del Toro walked up to you and said there are vampires out there, you'd really look back at him and say, oh, there are? Oh, okay, let's go. So that's why I would pick Benicio del Toro, and that's why I would switch that role around to where the go-to for the vampire knowledge is the grandpa. My phone just went off. Sorry about that. But there you go, guys. There's my picks and my reasonings for who would be good in a Lost Boys remake. I kind of hope they do one. It'd be interesting to see. But let me know what you think of the list. Who do you think would be good in a Lost Boys movie? Be sure to follow me on Twitter at James Walker Show, and I'll see you guys next time. Ow. Timothée Chalamet and Mackenzie Foy were already brother and sister in Interstellar. Damn it. Oh well, they can do it again. They should just be brother and sister in like every movie that they do.